there's 2.7 million private security guards in South Africa registered. There's probably something more like 3.5 million if you count the ones that are unregistered. There's anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million that work monthly. It's an enormous deskless workforce.
But 6 times the police force.
It's enormous. Yeah, it's enormous. South Africans, for the most part, this is the feeling I get, is like South Africans are fed up, and different levels of what they're fed up about. But certainly people are fed up about crime and the effect it has on everyone's lives. Whether you live in the leafy suburbs of Constantia or you live in, the most dangerous part of Soweto, if you ask anyone in South Africa, would you like to feel safer?
Yeah.
Every single one of them will say yes.
It's also annoying to then watch that interaction in the Oval Office where it's like crying out for international resource, where we have local innovation and entrepreneurs that have access to global tool sets. So let's look inward, mobilize, and sure, if we need resource from abroad, we can call on it. But
here's the fundamental problem. They hate you guys. Hello, this is Undercurrent, and I am Roman Kavanagh, former Chief of Staff to the Minister of Agriculture. Imagine, if you will, something within WhatsApp that makes South Africa a bit safer. This is what these two guys in this podcast have created. It's called Community Wolf. I invited them onto the show. They did not pay me whatsoever, but I really think if it works well and it scales, it can make a huge difference to the safety of all South Africans, which is, of course, what this channel is all about. So Mike and Nick will be joining me from Community Wolf. Thank you for watching. And if you want to download Community Wolf so long, first link in the description below. On to the show. So guys, I had this satanic app on my phone called TikTok, because we put up stuff for this podcast on TikTok. And it obviously gives you what you want after a while. And you guys came up. Community Wolf came up. And it's this idea of, you will expand, of course, like an AI agent within WhatsApp for the purposes of public safety. So that instantly piqued my interest. So Nick, Mike, thank you for coming. Can you just give little intros of yourselves, 30 seconds each? Nick, how did you come to this idea, so to speak?
Sure. So born and raised South African, originally from Cape Town, went to boarding school in the Eastern Cape where I met Mike. So that was 15 years ago. Landed up in London, back to South Africa during COVID, never left. And just eking out kind of possibilities within electrification, access to water, and now public safety.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess my background's always been engineering, and I've always had this urge to build stuff, I suppose. And me and Nick have talked many times over the years of different ideas, and the most recent of which is Community Wolf. And my background over the last 4 years has been in AI, and we're just at a really cool time now in history where tech is really accessible to everybody. And now we can tackle big problems like, crime and public safety. And we think we can do that through AI and WhatsApp and bringing communities together.
Yeah. So, as you guys know, if you go overseas anywhere and you tell people, or they ask you where you're from, it's like South Africa, they know 2 things. Nelson Mandela and why aren't you dead yet? From being murdered. So tell us a little bit about this. So I'm quite an idiot with AI. I usually like to summarize things or like to do research, but I don't know anything. And please assume the audience doesn't know anything. So keep it like 5-year-old level for my purpose, please. Community Wolf is an AI agent within WhatsApp. What does that mean?
Well, maybe what I'll do is to take a step back is that where we started was we wanted the ability for every South African or really anyone in the world to have access to safety tools to let them report suspicious activity, crimes, and have tooling that we think really is like kind of a right to have. And in places like South Africa, like you said, nothing frustrates me more than, telling someone where you live and the first thing they say is, is it safe to be there? And like that kind of desire to make South Africa safer was where we started. So Community Wolf did start as an AI agent on WhatsApp to help people report crime, suspicious activity. But it's kind of ballooned into a lot more now because, as we'll probably talk about, the problem space of safety and crime and is much bigger than just allowing people to participate. It's about businesses and companies and governments and entities and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add there is that South Africa is a melting pot of different social contexts and nuances within this community and that community, language barriers. So we now thrust into this position of a tool set that can allow us to access that melting pot and consistently or deliver a consistent output to a safety ecosystem that we think is like incredibly powerful. Basically, like we didn't come together and say, let's go build an insurance product or enter financial services. This is a problem ripe for this tool set, we think.
Yeah, maybe what I missed out, Roman, is practically how you use Wolf and what that looks like is, if you can imagine, if you called up the police or a call, 911 or whatever the number is here in SA, you go to a call center and in order to facilitate that amount of connection with people, you need people.
Yeah.
And up until very recently, that was always the case. And now we have the ability to, like you said, have agents do the work alongside us, which means we can solve problems and cater to every South African. And that's not an unrealistic statement to say, because we can scale the technology to allow everybody to have this first line communication to talk about public safety matters. So we chose WhatsApp because WhatsApp is used by 98% of internet users in South Africa, also across the whole of Africa as well. So it's where the people are. We wanted to meet people where they are and give them a free way to do it. So Wolf is something, your audience can take their phone out their pocket, go onto WhatsApp. They can message Wolf now. It'll be free. It'll respond to you. It'll respond in the language of your choosing. It doesn't get tired, doesn't sleep. And all that kind of stuff leads us to this place where we can cater for something that required loads of humans to do. And now we can do it not without humans, but, at a scale which was never possible before.
So in that same analogy of me being a 5-year-old, what is the use case of it? How would you, if I had a 5-year-old child, what would you say Community Wolf actually does on WhatsApp?
Well, the original kind of idea was that, so we get the quarterly SAPS crime data, and that's probably the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of people don't feel safe going into SAPS station to report, and like an actual incident, never mind suspicious activity. So the ability to deploy something that's anonymous, the first communities we walked around in Kaimandi and Stellenbosch, that's all they were interested in, really, the community leaders and some of the community members that sat in on a workshop we ran. Is this anonymous, guys? Because that's key to uptake in our community. And then that kind of drove a lot of that part of, at that time, the community side. And then, as Mike said, we'll get to the enterprise, because for that to work, there's an ecosystem in play. You need a man, a vehicle, and a gun to actually create positive safety outcomes. It doesn't matter how strong your community network is, there needs to be an outcome. So, yeah.
And maybe to your 5-year-old, would say is, if you see something,
that's PhD.
Yeah. If you see something that you think is suspicious or a known crime or a crime you knew that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is, tell Wolf about it.
Yeah.
And that becomes a dot on a map. And over time, we will accumulate millions and millions of dots. And that helps us and the parties that we work with establish, where is stuff actually happening? Because you walk down the street, you have we have these spidey senses of where, I shouldn't be down here because it feels weird. But to deploy police and to deploy private security, those sensors aren't good enough. You need to be able to say there are 30,000 dots here over the last year. We should have people here to the 5-year-old, report what you see, whether that's suspicious, a crime that happened, a past crime that didn't happen, or that you knew about. And you just say to Wolf, and that becomes a dot. And then the follow on from that is inside Wolf, you can set home. And any time something happens near home that someone else has reported, you'll get alerted directly from Wolf. So Wolf becomes this kind of middle communication layer about public safety things. Again, all for free, all anonymously, so that, we like the saying of arm the rebels in a way. Let South Africa fight for the things that it cares about. And we care about our communities and our safety and where our kids go to school and where we work and where we live and all these things. You can do it all through WhatsApp.
So at the heart, is it a sort of a networking tool, essentially? So I played around with Wolf. obviously before I invited you guys onto the show. And you talk to it and it sort of poses you questions, if I remember correctly. I haven't played with it in a few weeks. But essentially, if someone else in my area is playing with Wolf at the same time or saying something, I would get notification that, okay, this guy 4 blocks away said he saw whatever, a homeless, drugged up guy on the side of the street and he's concerned. Like, I would know about that.
Yeah.
But I don't need to know that guy.
No.
But Wolf will put me in touch with him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's kind of like a broadcast. It's like a broadcast that you put out to the community. And a good analogy, we like to use is Waze is the traffic app. Waze allowed millions of people around the world to participate in traffic, basically like a traffic routing. Because if I know that you're stuck in traffic, you don't need to know me, but I'm coming 5 kilometers down the road. But because I know that you're stuck in traffic, I can make my Apple tell me to go somewhere else. It's like that concept. You don't need to know each other, but it's mutually beneficial for you to both participate, which is what I think we do anyway. Like humans deep down, I think, care about each other in some way, shape or form. And communities certainly do. And communities are doing this on WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, and people are posting on Facebook stories. And like, that's just noisy. And we think we can consolidate it into one place.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the one thing there, a lot of the idea came from the fact that we're sitting in these leafy suburbs in Johannesburg and we look after our bubble. Even though our bubbles are actually quite close together, I don't know what's going on in your area and you don't necessarily know what's going on in mine. So to break down those barriers, but that's still the tip of the iceberg in the sense that the disproportionate participation in this all is frightening. Like, we have the mechanisms to bubble up data and optimize our resources within our areas. So now we have a tool to do that no matter where you are in this country.
So I think people would ask, this all sounds great and fair. And then if sort of I report something, then my community will know about it. And it's pretty good. People might be worried about privacy concerns, things like that. How can you assuage them about that?
I think all these concerns are valid, right? Like, this is a space that is so deeply linked to your safety. It by definition, literally how safe you are, your family is, where you live, where you work, where your kids go to school. And that's been at the core of what we are trying to build here. And like Nick mentioned earlier, we went into Kaimandi, which has got 80,000 people, probably more like 140,000 people. And the number one thing on their mind is, if I say something to Wolf, do people know that I said it to Wolf? Like, that's super important for them. And obviously the Karens in the leafy suburbs, we love you, Karens, they feel more comfortable saying, I saw this guy, and they don't care if their name pops up in a group chat.
Correct.
There are no group chats in Kaimandi talking about crime and public safety stuff. There is none of them. They will not walk into SAPs because they're too scared. So for us, like, at the very core of it, reports are separated from users. Everything is encrypted along its route. We use all the standard data protection kind of mechanisms and frameworks that you would expect. It's at the core of our whole, trust is at the core of this whole business at the end of the day.
Yeah, because ironically, I mean, in the leafy suburbs, as you say, trust amongst the homeowners is relatively high, especially if there's a sort of price point, right? If the average house is 3 million rand, you would expect the people living around you to be able to A, afford it. So B, they might have a professional job, and C, they have kids in schools that are close to yours. So there's a lot of relative trust just based on our assumptions about where we live.
Yeah.
But in Kaimandi or Vosloorus or places like that, it's to and fro. A lot of the criminals are inside those places, whereas in the leafy suburbs, they have to come from outside in, so you can see the threat from a mile away. But if you are in a township or informal settlement, the dangers are inside. And then the dangers of exposing those dangers is life and death for the most part. But you solve that in a way that no one else really can, because it's purely anonymous.
But the sense of community is as rich in Kaimandi as
richer.
It's richer.
Oh, much richer, I believe.
So it's like, just to center on that, we now are trying to enable that sense of community within a framework that we can actually create an output, and we don't know how long that output will take to crystallize safer outcomes, in a sense that we've got this data. Mr. General or Brigadier what can we do to allocate resource around that? So that's the question mark around it. But certainly the mechanism is now there to enable the participation, I guess.
And that, like, for us, it's kind of like a chicken and egg example where we, you know, a lot, and probably your viewers will be saying the same thing. It's like, okay, I reported something, but now what? Yeah. You know, like, awareness is great, but we think awareness is maybe like the first level. If everyone's aware, if I'm in Barcelona, or if I'm in London, or if I'm here in Johannesburg or Cape Town, and I walk out and and I say I'm going this place, and Wolf says probably shouldn't go that way, you should go this way because there was a stabbing and 5 muggings yesterday. Like, that's awareness, and we don't have that awareness, and you have it kind of at your core. You have these, like, the feeling of what's going on, but you don't know for sure, and that's one part of it. So awareness is important, but actually being able to anticipate something so that you can put prevention in place or to react to it, for us is a chicken and egg kind of a situation, because we can go to security providers and say to them, hey, we're building this platform, this social network to help with public safety outcomes. And they'll say, cool, how many users are using it in this area? And then we'll say, well, we're just getting started here. And then it's okay. They go, well, come back when you have more. Or the other way around is we start with activations in a user area like Kaimundi, and they go, okay, I'm reporting, but who's going to come? And like for them, it's a big issue. It's like, and like to hear that from like Nick and I were proper moved by it, because they say, like, this is all cool, but who's coming? No one cares about us here.
Yeah.
And where we were, there was a SAPS office or station 100 meters down the road.
Yeah.
And they're like, who's going to come for us? And we're like, they're like, SAPS they won't come here. So it's like that's the dilemma for us, but it's also kind of an opportunity, is that gives us a set to go. We can go after enterprises and prove value with them, but we can also go after communities and show them how awareness is like the first starting point. And again, this is like early on in our journey, but it's definitely something we're working through.
Like all sort of tech startups, you need adoption. So I think like Uber, for example, would say, okay, we need like 3 cars to start, and we'll do it in these 5 blocks of New York City. But then the more people use it, the more drivers can actually drive for Uber, and then it expands and expands and expands. So you start at the stage where perhaps you need more people to use it, and then you can bring on what you call the enterprise guys to come in and say, okay, so now we've got all this data for whatever Rosebank or Soweto or whatever the case might be. And now maybe the security guys and the police and the provincial police can actually see that data and then make decisions to sort out the issues based on the data that you provide them.
100%.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
So there are 1,154 police stations in South Africa, and as per the SAPS Act, each one is mandated to spin up a community policing forum, a CPF. That's a free forum for us as civilians to go and sit in front of the general and say what's going on here. That structure is one that we've identified, and Stellenbosch is now turning out to be we're calling it a sandbox, but we've got the response entities in place. They have our enterprise platform in their control rooms, and that's the private security guys. So your household names, municipal law enforcement and SAPS. And now we can sort of, the more conventional digital marketing teams can come in out of home, and we can start activating this awareness cycle to then actually see whether this mechanism that we theoretically think can work. As a response, again, we don't want to, this is not a panic app necessarily. It's it's a component of, but this is a data accrual, like surface unreported data. That was kind of the headline virtual witness statement. Those are some of the headline words we've strung together, but yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the problems with crime, so I know quite a lot of guys in the security industry. I know a lot of guys in the police. And data is actually the biggest flaw in a lot of these things. It's very uneven. It's not really trustworthy. And security is, and police is reactive, right? So someone has to tell them something's happening, then they react to it.
Yeah.
But what Community Wolf, maybe the plan is, you must tell me, is the security guy or the police or whatever the case might be know for a fact that this area is ridden with burglaries. So they can actually set up prevention tactics to bring that down, and they can do all of it through your work.
Yeah. That's the idea. It's like to move from well, twofold is if we can make informal settlements, townships, don't like those words, but like the Kaimandis, Kailicha, Langa, etc. If you can make those places safer, it will make other parts of, the attachments to them safer as well. So like at the core of it, that's what's important. That's what's really important to us. And then like the private security piece, like building the platform that attaches on top of it is like something that will come as a result of igniting communities and having them report. And all of that is to build up a data set that, one, we can react on top of, but in time we can be able to predict. And we have a great person on our team. Has a PhD in spatial crime mapping. She's spent 20 years researching this stuff. And there are amazing stats around, like if something happens, an incident happens on this street, there's 80% chance that it's going to move down to the next street on the same night. Or if the wind is blowing, there's an increased percentage of crimes. Like all these things we know, okay? But we don't know them at an entire countrywide because South Africa doesn't have publicly spatial crime data to like the pinpoint of exactly where it happened. Whereas in the UK, like I can go today, we can do it on our phone. I can download the last 5 years of crime data. It'll be GPS located. We'll get 23 million dots. I can't do that in South Africa. I can download an Excel sheet that says there was 4,500 crimes. Like that's about as good as we can get. But in the UK, it's publicly available. And again, it comes back to this awareness piece. If we can build this data set that both brings the public into this domain, because they should be part of it. They live and work in these spaces.
Correct.
As well as add that value on top of private security businesses. That's kind of a long-winded way of really getting to it.
On the topic of wind, think about it practically. These guys deal with 90+% false alarm signals.
Yes.
So you can imagine a controller late at night, their gusts of wind comes through and these alarm panels start going. And it's just like hit the reset button and bring the system back up, because same happened with load shedding.
Yeah.
So these are like real things, but again, we've got no reference point as to, so basically the criminals know that, and that's why there's an increase in home invasions when there's gusty winds.
That's actually, I never thought about that, but it's completely correct. I mean, I assumed load shedding because it's dark.
Yeah.
And gates might not work or things like that, or especially in areas where there's no backup systems. But of course, wind makes perfect sense. Or maybe when, a full moon compared to...
Yeah, exactly. So,
I think it's white noise.
like imagine you sitting at the thing and your phone goes off and it's Wolf saying, hey, it's 23 degrees and windy. There's a 95% chance that there's going to be something happening tonight. And then when it happens, it says, well, this happened 4 streets away. Do you know what I mean? Like whether or not that actually eventuates, like that's the blue sky thinking, is like how you can just connect a whole village together at scale.
Well, we can do that now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, I have an alarm panel at home. You probably have one.
Yeah.
It's just now I'm just extra aware to make sure all my beams are on, they're working, no dead batteries. Everyone, let's, sleep easy tonight. Just that little layer of awareness we can now do at scale.
Yeah. So in essence, you're trying to replace the sort of community WhatsApp group in a way. So where I live, so maybe that's a bit rough around the edges. So where I live, there's about 5 groups under this one community. And so like about pets and like crap, like no one cares about. It's just noise. It's fluff. Like it's complete nonsense. If you really need to know something in an emergency, there's like 100 messages to go through and no one actually knows what's going on. And then if there is an emergency, it's on the group, but then someone still has to call the private security guards to actually like sort it out. Like there was a homeless guy who was unfortunately very drunk and was bashing people's gates violently, not to break in, just because he was out of his mind. And it took like 30 minutes to figure out where he was, what he was doing, and for the security guys to rock up. In that scenario, your app makes a lot more sense because it's an immediate, this is happening, and that goes immediately to the security guys in the area, I would suspect.
Yeah, and so what we've been talking about up until now is Community Wolf. It's the AI agent on WhatsApp. But we have Enterprise Wolf, which is the same. It's an AI agent for deskless workers in private security. We can talk about that later. But for WhatsApp groups, because humans, humans are happy to talk on groups, or they're not happy to talk on groups. There's no groups in like Kaimandi as an example.
Yeah.
But for places that do have groups, we have a group agent, which we haven't, thought of a fun name for other than group agent. But that's a different version of Community Wolf's IP, and it sits on a WhatsApp group and it listens. And you give it a job, and it might be listening for alarms that went off, or suspicious activity, or power failures, or guards checking in, or whatever the case may be. You build it for the group that it's sitting on, and it listens, to your point, not to the noise, but for the stuff that it's supposed to listen on. Like kind of to the example, if you said to your 5-year-old, watch this TV show, and every time you saw a red balloon, just tell me that there's a red balloon on the screen. Like that's what the group agent is supposed to do, which every group gets to build their own group agent. For right now, it's only rolling out with enterprises, but we'll eventually just let people deploy this on their WhatsApp groups. And again, all those activities then get distributed through Community Wolf.
Right.
So you can say, I care about suspicious activity in this area. Yeah. And if it happens in that group, or if it happens because Sally messaged it or Clanty did, doesn't matter. It will come to you via WhatsApp, not via the group, because there's too much noise in the group.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. So, a lot of people will say, we're only focusing on like the privileged people in this country. And I mean, that's sort of where we live, and that's what we know. But for people who are actually really affected by crime, and this is like the sort of the more poorer, black, colored South Africans, let's just be honest with ourselves. And these are people that deserve a lot of charity and a lot of assistance from those who can give it to them. Like, what are you hoping to achieve with this project for those people?
It's their voices, I suppose, can be heard. You can be sitting in your shelter and in your first language interact with Community Wolf. And we need to get to a point where communities, no matter where you are in the country, actually trust that mechanism. And then it's our job to make sure that there's a loop that's closed, in the sense of there's an actual outcome of me sharing my concerns, not just again with an incident, but enough verification that this activity was suspicious and we got the guy. Just that moment, then that's what we want to achieve here.
And has there been any uptake from, it's still quite early, and you sort of trialed this in Kaimandi, but if you did you go to the cop shop and you said, this is what we're doing, what do you think? Like, A, did you do that? And B, did they give you a response to a question like that, in terms of, is it half full or not half full? Do they care at all? What are the reviews?
We got feedback at 9 a.m. this morning from our partner sitting in Stellenbosch that she sat in an E2 meeting yesterday evening. That's the Business Against Crime Forum, I think. Yeah, so E2, Eyes and Ears. And SAPs are very much aware of what we're doing, and it's now just how we integrate with them, which is a massive, massive move forward. Stellenbosch now, we've got every control room, our platform up in every control room, meaning no matter where you are in Stellenbosch or Kaimandi or Klutersville or Mfuleni, eventually taxi routes out to Lange, Kalicha. If you report, we've got an entity that can action or can deploy a resource to that report effectively.
Yeah, but I think to your point of how do we cater for every South African? And I think that is probably the biggest challenge that we will always face. And for me, selfishly, that challenge is so massive that's what actually I get a massive kick out of it, is if we can actually build something that truly caters for every South African. And I think we've made the first steps in making it available to everybody. Yeah. Because you don't have to drive down a highway for very long to see a billboard about some panic app, the blue one, the yellow one. We know which ones they are.
But for money, right?
Exactly. They put a barrier up and they make it cost money. And that's fine because it's a business. It costs money to advertise, etc. What we want to do is have the safety tools given away for free, and us to build a big, strong, profitable business that provides value to private security businesses, help them cut costs, provide more value, increase their services, go deeper, wider, longer, and make tons of money doing that, so that we can push all that money into funding this free tool, because we think those two ecosystems have to exist together. And I think the blue tool and the yellow tool, and I think that they will always struggle because they are trying to bring themselves up at the detriment of the private security industry. And what we think is a better way to approach this is to bring both sides of this ecosystem up, the civilian and the private security business, together, so that you aren't taking value away from both. You're creating value on both sides.
So let's talk about monetization. So you explained that this is a free tool for the average person to use anywhere in the country, absolutely for free. It's a AI bot in WhatsApp. That I get completely. When you say enterprise, are you using that anonymous data, and are you going to sort of commercial security companies and saying, listen, this is the data, these people might need your help? Or how does it actually work? How do you actually make money from it?
That's where we started, but maybe...
Yeah, that's exactly where we started. But to Mike's point, it's that chicken and egg where we didn't have the data. So there's nothing, we could simulate data and show them theoretical outcomes, but there's no actual data here. So practical examples, coming into this building, there's a man with a device scanning our license discs in. That device costs circa 1,500 Rand a month. But he also has a phone that the security business has given to him to check in, to manage his shift, to communicate with the control room. So now he's got two devices. We've just said scrap the one. We've embedded the same technology into that WhatsApp interface. So he's now scanning you and taking an image of you, your driver's license or license disc, doing the exact same job. We're layering on far more rich analytic tools and data. And we packaging that up, and that's our enterprise, or one of our skills within our agent suite, if you will.
All on the hardware that they already have on site.
Correct.
So like, and maybe the nuances, because I think you'll agree with most of this, I hope, is there's 2.7 million private security guards in South Africa registered. There's probably something more like 3.5 million if you count the ones that are unregistered. There's anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million that work monthly. It's an enormous deskless workforce.
It's 6 times the police force.
It's enormous.
Yeah,
it's enormous. And they are mostly deskless. And what we mean by that is they're not sat here, at a desk. They're out with a baton and a torch and a clipboard. And some of them are in a car with a gun and a vest. But they are out and about in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. And the companies that they work for want to give them technology because technology, is the great enabler. But they can't give them technology for a few reasons. And one of them are the boundary conditions that exist in this industry is that you have guys and girls out in what is a really rough industry in places that they don't necessarily want to be. No one wants to be sitting in a guard hut in some street all day long in the dark.
Yeah.
It's rough. Rain, dust.
Especially in this weather, yeah.
Exactly. Everything in between. So those places, those deskless workers all have a WhatsApp phone, like Nick mentioned, the site phone that's there, paid for by the business, and they have all this other hardware. And they are so rough on these phones because just it's a rough industry, but also the personnel that work in this industry aren't hyper caring about, the thing. It's just the way it is.
It's like a work computer. I don't treat it as well as
100%.
When I had a job.
100%.
I don't anymore.
With the asterisks of some of these guys will take so that you're right there. Yep. The other part is they've got all these other devices that they have to work, like scan a device here, or you'll see in Joburg, they walk around, they tap another one on a wall while they do the patrol routing. But these guys and girls know that if that device is broken, I'm chilling. If my patrol device ain't working, the boss man can't, I'm going to just sit here and I'm not going to do my patrol because he doesn't fucking know if I'm doing my patrol.
Sure.
So guys will put the thing in the sock, fling it around, bash it against the wall, boil it in a kettle. Like the stories we've heard from being in this industry are nuts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nuts.
They sabotage their own.
They sabotage because it's like, I can't work. Boss can't work. The patrol device is broken, scan device is broken. The one thing that they will not break, at least not purposely, is the WhatsApp business cell phone, because that's how they check in. That's how they check in for their shift. That's how they update if anything goes wrong. So this one thing is a consistent piece of kit that's in this business. And that phone is locked to WhatsApp only data, because if it had access to anything else, the Oaks would be on TikTok, they'd be watching porn, they'd be gambling, they'd be doing anything other than working. So the industry has kind of created this boundary condition, which is the WhatsApp phone. Right. And because of that, they've been forced to go to hardware that the Oaks then break. So the reason they can't have an app on a phone, which you can do a lot of this stuff on an app, is because then you have to open up the phone to apps. which puts us in a really cool position where we've gone, cool, those are awesome boundary conditions. WhatsApp's the only thing we can do. Okay, cool. We're just going to put all the tech into WhatsApp. And those are what we call skills on the enterprise agent. And we charge per skill, per device for those.
Okay, so you have two agents.
Yeah.
Community Wolf is the one that we were referring to, where you and I can use it to report things in our own communities and do that and get the data. But you have another, whatever you call it, Enterprise Wolf, I don't know what you call it, that sees Community Wolf data, but can also scan license cards and track whatever these guys do anyway.
Yeah.
That is super smart. So security companies will only need one device.
But to expand your mind in terms of the quantum, think about how many gated estates, think about any manned area they are. Every site has two devices. It's such an important piece of this operation that they're two devices. There's failover. So now you've got two devices. The guys leave it on a charger. The battery swells. Okay, and I've got another one. I'm still connected. So it's an incredibly important part of either side of our ecosystem. But it's to my point, it's a consistent piece.
And then just to close off the point of like the two agents, we have the group agent, which, can sit amongst both sides of that ecosystem. And then for each one of the agents or each side of the ecosystem, civilians and enterprise, we have platforms. So there's a free platform for civilians, which shows all the dots across the whole world.
All right.
It will soon show live news about what's happening in your area. You'll be able to create your own profile and create your own areas inside of there, although you can do all of that on WhatsApp, freely available. And then Enterprise has its own platform as well, where you can manage the Enterprise Wolf agent. You can manage the skills that you deploy to all your staff. You can see all the dots, but you can see all the detail of all the dots down to like the full conversation and the voice message and the text and the image and the video and exactly what happened at that point in time. For enterprise people, businesses that are SERA registered, so they go through a proper vetted process to get on the platform. And that makes up this whole ecosystem with the idea of, for the first time, connecting everything up together.
Yeah. Through something everyone uses.
Well, to the lawyers and poppy-sensitive viewers, one clear distinction, while the functionality is very similar, the redaction from a data perspective on map.communitywolf versus platform.communitywolf, the enterprise side, very different. You getting a what, where, when as a civilian. The enterprise SERA registered controllers getting faces, voice notes, videos, images, alongside other information we provide with the agents or the language model underneath.
So, are you concerned about being too successful?
Yes.
Because
well, define it. What do you think we should be concerned about?
I think I already have like $3 million ideas right now.
That's good to know.
Like you could give this data to bamboozle estate agents. Like they say, this is a wonderful suburb. It's perfectly safe. It's like, actually, Community Wolf says otherwise. 100%. Give me a 30% discount. But anyway, that's one of them. But number two, let's say you are successful. Let's say someone in a community somewhere says, this is happening right now, someone's being stabbed. That gets a resource there, private security, they detain the person, that person gets arrested, goes to court. Is your platform good enough for evidence in court?
It's a good question.
It's a great question. It's something we chatted about as recently as this week in terms of we literally needed a text field for a case number in our platform so that when that officer puts a case number in, we can feed that back into the community. Just as a practical example, this is a deep subject, but it's very much top of mind for us.
Yeah, I think this needs to be valuable across the whole chain of how something goes from an incident all the way through to sits in front of a judge. The reality is what we are doing fundamentally is collecting data about an incident, and that whoever reported that incident and whoever verifies that incident, we can contact back and say, are you willing to testify? The exact nuances of that we're still working through, and obviously the legalities and counsel, and we're going through that process, but it's early days for us. But this doesn't work unless we figure that out. I'm not concerned that we're going to have any issues with that. If we have problems with that, means we're doing we've done what we're supposed to do, and we get to the point where these things are used in a court of law. I mean, that would be epic?
But then they'll bring you to the stand and you need to tell what it is and how it works, especially to people who may be lay people.
Yeah.
And they need to verify all these things, because I mean, I knew people who supply the police with like all sorts of like software for like DNA and software for like all the photographs to be stored from crime scenes and all that. You can disrupt that entire industry as well, to be honest.
We basically want to have Wolf in the hands of every civilian, and we want Wolf to be in the control rooms of every private security business in South Africa. And that means there's going to be a shitload of disruption if we get that right. And instead of having 5 different software providers in your control room, you just have Wolf, and you can integrate outside things into it, the LPR and the camera this and the this and all this other stuff. You could put on one platform, but slowly over time, we just want to cannibalize all those platforms and do it on our own, because we are in this weird time right now where the ability to build tech is decreasing in difficulty. The amount of money you need to build tech is also decreasing in amount. The number of people you need to run a successful business is decreasing, and the number of clients you need to be profitable is decreasing. So we're in like this really great time. Plus, this private security industry is like this is how it's always been done mindset. Yeah. Which is just like, if you look at what are industries that are ripe for disruption, like that's the first thing they say is like, find industries where they say that line. So,
and security, yes. The one for disruption.
It's to just move this perhaps philosophically. It sounds like we want to be the central being and have agency, across the board. But actually a lot of our themes we discuss are to decentralize the power and bring and enable communities. Like that's at the core of what we're trying to do more philosophically. So it's not like we're sitting on keys and now, we can unlock this immense amount of value. We want to provide a framework and almost let it run to the point where, sure, there are forces out there that can turn us off theoretically, but we kind of wanted to get to a point where we step away.
Well, I mean, essentially you're creating a platform, right? So like this is going on YouTube. YouTube's a platform. It can't tell what I'm going to put on there. It's like how many hundreds of millions of videos a day on YouTube. Yeah. Right? It's got some machine learning to figure out if it's like not allowed within the rules and things like that. But YouTube by itself runs profitably as a platform. And I think that analogy might work well for what you're building as well. Like the AI agent within WhatsApp is actually just a mechanism for people to use. And then you just reap whatever people use it for in various ways. But it helps the person, and it helps you, and it helps the entire country after a while, assuming the uptake is there.
That's the hope. And like just another little idea to float, because you've got 3 million ideas. I'll throw one other one. Is like we haven't gone deep down this rabbit hole, but we've talked about it a lot. Is that idea of Uber enabled the average person to become a driver and own his own little business. We've talked a lot about in the future, imagine if Wolf was this mechanism that a community leader could spin up his own private security business inside of his own community, all through Wolf, and Wolf facilitates everything, helps him.
Hold on. Are you saying militias?
No.
And cults? I'm in. As long as I'm the cult.
No, it basically...
Vigilante and a bot.
Yeah, basically this idea of like, can you let someone get Sarah registered?
Yes, yeah.
Facilitate creating his own little client base and paying a person a guard and getting a registration for a gun and all this stuff to like protect his own little community, because this is happening already. There are community leaders who stand up for their, the people around them, and like, how great would it be to let that guy build a little business around the service that he's already providing or she is providing, and let the rails be Wolf in the same way that Uber does it and takes a cut from it and whatever. I mean, obviously, feedback on the idea, please.
Yeah. Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think, funny enough, during the July 2021 rise, I've got 2 stories for you about this. So I'm quite close to Hillbrow. I was at the time quite close to Hillbrow, as a suburb. And, like on the community group, I was like, guys, Hillbrow's burning. We're not far away. We need to like maybe do something. Maybe like just barricade the road or something like that. And the answers were, don't worry, SAPS will help us. So I thought, okay, very good. And then private security will help us. And the third comment was, I've got a pepperball paintball gun. So I was like, you know what? My community is so not prepared for what could possibly happen. Thankfully, nothing bad happened whatsoever. But community will solve that problem. But during the July 2021 riots, if you go speak to people, especially in Johannesburg, what prevented a lot more carnage in Joburg was taxi operators. I know for a fact, taxi operators said, if you burn down this mall, we're going to bloody massacre all of you. Because what is a business? Taking people to and from work.
To work, yeah. That's actually such a good point.
Or work in Sandton, or you work at whatever.
Yeah.
So they tried a bit at Alexandria Township. They tried a little bit around the outskirts of Joburg. They tried a little bit in Hillbrow. But it was the taxi operators that shut it down for the most part, because they said, you're screwing up our business.
So what happened in KZN, to your knowledge? I mean, what happened there? And the riot get ahead of the structure?
Yeah, way more.
Okay.
Yeah, no, completely. Way more. Yeah. So in Joburg, we felt the sort of the copycat after effects, but in KZN it was well planned. They stole hundreds of firearms. They stole millions of rounds of bullets. They stole tens of millions of rands from ATMs. The riot was just the excuse. I don't know what they're building down there. I don't want to know, but yeah, there's a lot of dodgy stuff.
On that topic, we've heard stories. So we've interacted with a big response business in Durban, and they're struggling with the after effects because neighborhood watches became so strong that they spawned into little response businesses. So the guy that had your concern that mobilized a Bucky and a few other guys that had your concern in your area neighboring Hillbrow actually crystallized into a little response business that now this existing incumbent has to go and buy. And that's how this industry is surviving. It's just through consolidation of the same. Right. So we're not here to disrupt anything, and specifically not the response piece, but just an interesting kind of after effect.
Which is kind of like cyclical, because, and the keyboard warriors can do what they want with this, but this is kind of how private security started. This whole industry started with communities going, hey, let's pay someone to sit with a Bucky at the end of the road. And that became XYZ security company. And then another community did it, which is kind of like, it started like that, grew really massive. And then communities took it to their own point where they are now, and then redoing it again. And it's like, then they buy them. Yeah, it's kind of a weird little cyclical moment.
They're corporatized.
Yeah, and just one point on that is someone said to us early on in this journey that, and this is talking more to the high LSM affluent areas, that they're starting to question the value of response. Now your average revenue per household is being forced down. To show value, those entities are now having to buy more Buckies, employ more people. So how do we work with those entities and actually show the community? Because I'm very happy to add a 0 to my response premium if I know close to, look, there's no guarantee here, but if I'm very confident that by doing that, I can basically remove my alarm panel in extreme, I will do that. But right now, I'm under the hood here, and I know they're doing a good job, but the technology stack is just not, it's just shite. So
it really is. Like in our area, we have to like call them on WhatsApp or send them a message on WhatsApp. I mean, if you got a gun against your head, or you don't have time to.
Do you know how many WhatsApp groups these businesses have? Take a guess.
I can't imagine.
Some of them have thousands of WhatsApp groups, and remember, they don't have, at least not right now, they don't have the group agent sitting on all 1,000. They've got the human group agent, which is a human being,
right? Which
they're sitting on a WhatsApp desktop with the read unread filter. So only the unread stuff is shown, which is like this list that's this long, and they click through and they read, check if anything's happening, click next through, and they just disappear until there's nothing there, and then they wait. But they're managing hundreds of WhatsApp groups, human beings, and humans get tired. And listen, these are good people that are
much so.
It's just not a human's job. It is just too much going on there for a human to manage. And the groups are varying. Some of the groups are community groups. Some of the groups are shift groups. Some of the groups are, hey, I just filled up the petrol tank and it cost me 2,000 Rand. You know, they're so wide and varied that a human has to context switch. I mean, and it makes it seem as if I think these are just the industry is somewhat being forced down this way because of things like WhatsApp being so easy to use and easy to create groups, and just we are where we are, and that's the opportunity that we're presented with, and the boundary conditions that exist in this industry, which we think just constrain us to like what we think is a really good starting point to start off of. But yeah, there's loads of WhatsApp groups. It's untenable.
And the mission here is, just for clarification, is to not get rid of that controller dedicated to WhatsApp groups. It's just to add, it's the classic AI thing of just like their time should be spent on higher value items. That's what everyone says. But in this industry, it really could be, it really could be used on better sort of tasks within the stack. Yeah.
Yes. No, I can fully agree. No, I think you're onto something that even I don't quite understand as yet. As I said, I played around with it. No one else. The biggest downfall at the moment is that no one else is on there within my sort of area. But I mean, once you're able to reach that critical mass of people, like I know people that will think this is like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it really well could be the case. What do you have to do to get there? Like, how long ago did you start, firstly? And like, what is your sort of 6-month or year-long roadmap looking like?
7 months ago, we started chatting, ironically, on WhatsApp. Bounced a few ideas around. Mike, put the bit between his teeth, and within a few days we had an MVP kind of set up, so an agent that you could interact with.
And a terrible website.
But just to your point there, some of your listeners could probably go into their neighborhood watch groups now and look for a number that's just randomly being added. That's our distribution into the LSM that potentially is listening or watching this. In terms of activating underserved areas or townships, that's going to be very piecemealed and controlled.
I actually spoke to, so before you get to the roadmap, I apologize. I actually spoke to someone who knows security inside out, and he says the biggest problem you'll face is actually people adopting what you have because they are so scared.
For sure.
Right. And I'm sure that's probably your biggest issue. So in 6 months, what you had, you started 7 months ago.
Yeah.
Which is very early. What you're having to achieve.
So we're a tech business, but funny enough, we don't think tech is the moat. Which we've been open about saying from the beginning. And maybe a good, for context, we started 7 months ago. We've raised a bunch of money to go and tackle this because we're under no illusion that doing this is not going to be cheap. This is a fucking difficult problem to go and solve. It requires people to back us. It's going to require organizations, and we need people behind this, whether that's the people using it or people with money that want to come along for the journey. But tech is not the moat here. For us, like the thing that we think is most important is brand, which leads to distribution, which leads to data. And those three things we can defend. And the analogy, we just actually went out to market and we'll have someone by the time this comes out, is someone to own our brand and marketing piece. But brand and marketing makes it sound like it's a smaller thing than it is. We want Wolf to be a household name, like a reactionary thing you think about. Everyone who's listening, if you're in an incident and you're under the gun, you're going to think 911 in your head just automatically because it's the most famous sort of public safety brand there is. It's not even a brand. We want that to be Wolf. And in theory, in the future, you just pick your phone up and you call Wolf. And on the other side of the phone will be a human-like agent that will do whatever needs to be done to facilitate that. So to your point of like, what's next for us is it's growing the brand to that point. And that means really activating online, in person, doing things like this. We haven't yet started to distribute this in any meaningful way. It's really been Nick and I on LinkedIn, on TikTok a little bit, and word of mouth. And we've grown to 3,000 users in South Africa. And those people all have areas that they care about. And that's how we'll grow. And to your point of it being like a network effect, you become a user, you create an area, you share your area with your friends and family. One person reports it, everyone gets the message. And that's how this whole thing, the snowball, will start.
So is the easiest thing to do is for one person in a community to activate Wolf, so to speak, and then can they share that activation link in the sort of group WhatsApp?
Yeah.
And that is probably the best way to scale, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as, if they went to communitywolf.com, you sign up, it takes you 3 clicks and you're in WhatsApp, you send Wolf a message. The first thing it will ask you is to set up an area. It always suggests home as a starting point, but you could pick wherever you want, school, mom's work, whatever. And as soon as you finish setting that up, you just say, can you turn that into a link I can share? And then Wolf will create a link and you just share that with your friends and family. And what that will do is, if your friends and family click the link, the first message you send to Wolf will be, please add this area. And it'll be an ID that associates to your area, and they'll get that same area as well.
Okay.
The map is fascinating.
Yeah, it's really...
It's almost all encompassing of the metros, in that it's not a Venn, is it a massive Venn diagram? Not really. But anyway, overlapping circles of areas people care about. Again, to use the word, it's almost all encompassing of the metros, the overlapping areas.
That's very cool, yeah.
It's awesome to see.
And then, so if you set an area called home, if I remember correctly, you can set like the parameters of how far you want home to be.
Yeah.
And then anything within that like 10-kilometer radius, I would get a message.
Yeah.
So even if it's something 10 Ks away, say, oh, there's a house breaking here, I would know about it.
Yeah.
And then guys are forwarding it onto groups where we may or may not have an agent on already, but we're going to be covered on both sides. If you on, as you said, several suburb groups or street groups, you may be 50-50 on whether this is something you feel comfortable putting on in a group environment with your name and number there. So send the image, voice note, image or video to Wolf, and let Wolf handle the kind of allocation of that info.
Yeah, it's basically you just tell Wolf the places you care about, that you care about knowing what's happening, big, small, whatever, and in time we'll allow you to pick exactly what you care about. So do you care about, 5 levels of severity, one being someone just got murdered, all the way down to there's a person walking down the street. You pick which one you care about, and then Wolf will triage it to you. And you could set that up in as many areas that you want all around the world if you cared about it, turn them on and off as you please. Again, like the idea literally for it to all be done through WhatsApp and for free.
I mean, we getting reports in Stellenbosch, a recent one, a voice note came in. A woman witnessed someone getting stabbed with a screwdriver, and then 30 seconds later, my pet's missing. So you don't want that noise.
Right.
And if you're a controller, the controllers are only getting 3, 4, 5. The protocol for them is 3. It kicks, like a human needs to make a dispatch decision, and we're kind of priming this thing for 4 and 5 to be they're severe incidents that's going to be like an auto dispatch, just to get in the weeds.
Send the vehicle, or we're even starting to look at autonomous drones that would go over, and then they're there first, and things happen. You can get as sci-fi as you want with this, and again, that's just like another thing which we keep. Like it gets kind of 1984-y a little bit, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, where you have oversight over everything. But like, how do you go and solve a problem like this to the point where everyone on the planet sees South Africa in some way, shape, or form as unsafe or riddled with crime?
Yeah.
And like, how do you solve that problem? And like,
well, I mean, I've got answers. No one would like them, but pure violence, man, from the good guys.
Yeah.
Well, we need an El Salvador scenario where and he didn't use Community Wolf, but he did the same principles. Was like, what are the hot spots? Okay, let's send him the army.
He had data. He did have a Community Wolf.
Oh, did he have data?
He had data. The control room is as big as this wall. It's a big wall.
it's a big wall.
It's a big wall, multiple screens everywhere in front of us. He had that control. Bukele.
Yes.
His war room is 110% tech enabled.
So he did have the data.
He had data.
But if you want to go and do that, solve it with violence, and we're not saying whether or not that's the right way, but
right.
you.
For me.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can't go send people to the front line unless you know what you are dealing with, up against, etc. And this is our intuition. The townships are so dense and so well connected that they know what's going on, and they know the people that are, the bad eggs, the rotten ones. If we can build up trust and the mechanisms to let people say what they need to say deep down they want to say it in a safe, a sustainable way, then we can build the dots. And then, people like you can decide whether or not to send the militia.
Well, I have no power. I used to work in government, no longer. But what you're saying is Community Wolf can actually be the data upon which we can use a scalpel to take out
be surgical
problem people.
Maybe, yeah.
Exactly. Because we do know for a fact that in most societies, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle applies, right?
Yeah, agreed.
80% of the crime is committed by 20% of the people. And 80% of people don't commit any crime whatsoever. So there's very few people, I would say, in a few tens of thousands, who are like real hardcore criminals in this country that are responsible for this leveraged violence that we feel every single day. If you're able to use something like Community Wolf to really surgically remove those from society, that's obviously a much better solution than.
It's also the 80-20 rule applies in crime mapping. 80% of crime only happens in 20% of the area. But because crime data in South Africa is clustered around police stations and hospitals,
right.
You don't really have, they do report where the dots are, but it's not everybody knows this, and whether the private security businesses also know it. Like there is if there's a private security guy sitting on this hotspot with his vehicle parked there, it's unlikely the thing that usually happens there is going to happen there. And it probably moves elsewhere, but that's the starting point that we really think we can kind of go after.
I remember last year downloading SAPS's quarterly, so it probably was 2022 data. It lags, obviously. To find Stellenbosch podiums in most categories, for me, having grown up near that area, like I thought, post-COVID, the wealthiest of South Africans are moving to Stellenbosch, their gated communities, all that jazz, to then find out it's the most dangerous town in the country, or amongst the most dangerous areas in the country. It's exactly that. It's because Clutisville and Kaimandi's data is being bucketed with the central Stellenbosch region. So, yeah, there's no coincidence we've created a focus area around Stellenbosch. Highly dense students, there's neighboring townships.
And they're fed up.
Yeah,
it's everyone. I would say South Africans, for the most part, this is the feeling I get, is like South Africans are fed up, and different levels of what they're fed up about. But certainly people are fed up about crime and the effect it has on everyone's lives. Whether you live in the leafy suburbs of Constantia or you live in, the most dangerous part of Soweto, if you ask anyone in South Africa, would you like to feel safer?
Yeah.
Every single one of them will say yes. And that same statement applies across the whole planet. Everyone has a desire to feel safer, because it's not like an end state. It's like a journey you're on. You can always feel safer, always be in a, better environment. So to me, I'm like, that's why this is this universal thing we need to just go after. And like the repercussions of making us safer, cleaner spaces is a huge impact. It'll affect education. It'll affect the ability for people to become entrepreneurs, which affects businesses, which affects empowerment, which affects every walk of life.
Yeah, I fully agree. So, I keep going back to El Salvador, but it's really the only country in recent memory that was a complete criminal hellhole with the murder rate over 100 per 100,000. This is 4 times us. Twice times Lunga. It's, and then in the space of 4 years, with a bit of will, some data, and some strategy, they solved it. Like, to me, this is my political hat coming on. Like, this crime is deemed to be acceptable because it does not allow us to actually fight the government. If you create a low trust society by not enforcing any laws whatsoever, people are not going to get together and trust each other to actually do something good for themselves, right? And if you have a justice system that is purposefully not being funded correctly and purposely being, headed by people who are incompetent, of course, there's no excuse for it. Otherwise, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but there is really no excuse for it whatsoever.
But we have structures to I wouldn't say rectify it, but we have a structure for you to voice your concerns. It's exactly what you just said. We've got a structure where you can sit in front of the Rosebank police general, private security guys there, municipal guys, JMPD will be there. So the structure's there, but this is a big awareness thing, and like this is going to be a long journey to get every structure activated and pulling in the right direction. But we don't see any other way for that to scale without tech and the participation of the many.
To arm the rebels.
Yeah, correct.
Like I love the whole arm. You know, like South Africa cares enough about itself and its people. Like we're not saying arm you, like walk out the house with guns. We're saying like, but let's arm ourselves with technology and build a data set that we can actually go meaningfully after this problem. And like we think wolf is the armament. You know, that's what we want it to be. But yeah, I love the idea if we can get some gees behind it and people can actually do it. And we have to do our job of closing the loop and proving value for everyone across the chain. Like what a fucking massive task. But that's what we want to do. And we think that's the way to do this. And we might be wrong, but we're willing to have a big fucking crack at it.
And a theme that we following very closely is the connectivity of people, because now there's people watching this saying, well, you know, the 30 million WhatsApp users you talk to don't have access to data or Wi-Fi, fiber. A lot of what inspired, again, the Stellenbosch story is to find out a business called Fiber Time has completely connected that community of 40 to 50,000 homes, of which there's an average 2.5 to 3 per home, with routers. They connected. They can participate. We can layer on services there. We think the most powerful service to start is a safety network.
Yeah, correct. And a lot of crime is in high density areas. I mean, let's be honest about ourselves.
That's the root of it all.
Very few people are going in the middle of the Free State or in the middle of a village in the Eastern Cape and like performing a horrible crime. It does happen, of course, but I mean, metros are the places that will define crime and will define how far community will spread.
And if we can do it here, and we can do it with our people in the place that we grew up in, we can go do it in Brazil, and we can go do it in Colombia, and we can do it in Mexico, and we can do it in Nigeria, because those places map almost identically to South Africa. They have a high crime rate. They have massive private security businesses compared to police. They have got a huge WhatsApp user base in the many, many, many millions, and they have massive software spend inside the private security business. They map on a graph almost identically to South Africa, and like roughly the same. So we know if we can get it right here.
Yeah, you can scale it immensely. I always argue to people like South Africa is not an African country; it's actually a South American country. Like we've got young population, high unemployment, stupid socialism at the top that affects everything else, very violent, and all we need is like one hero to come out and just say, "This is all bullshit. Let's fix it." Like a Javier Milei or a Bolsonaro or a Nayib Bukele, and now the guy in Chile just won, who's also going to, the Chile was being relatively good. But we really are a South American country in terms of we've got everything we need to succeed. We just got like terrible leadership. That's the downfall of South America. Terrible leadership. They got resources, they got money, they got people, they got infrastructure, they got everything. But Africa doesn't.
It's kind of like the chainsaw mentality that they have, like just let's start again kind of thing.
Well, it's also annoying to then watch that interaction in the Oval Office where it's like crying out for international resource, where we have local innovation and entrepreneurs that have access to global tool sets. So let's look inward, mobilize, and sure, if we need resource from abroad, we can call on it. But
here's the fundamental problem. They hate you guys.
Who hates us?
The government hates you.
Yeah. You're
entrepreneurial, you want to make money, you want to make a difference. They don't care. Like, they really don't care. Take it from me. They really don't care.
Is that a generational thing? Is that is going to be weaned or tapered?
It is a crisis of self-confidence, because they know they got all the data. They got the same data we have. They see the crime. They see the economy. They see the unemployment, and they don't know how to solve it. So they're giving up on solving it. And if you offer a solution, it doesn't work unless it gives them more power or more money. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's the vicious circle. So I wouldn't recommend at all going to the government for assistance or anything like that. Like, just do this in a decentralized manner as much as possible. And that's where you're actually going to get somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this a lot. Is like, if you can build a movement that's big enough, it will speak for itself. It's difficult to like rip the rug out from someone when there's like a 10-ton elephant sitting on the rug,
Yeah, correct.
Whereas now we're two little mice standing on the rug. It's easy for them to rip the rug out now, but hopefully
we've got a little fish line to the elephant. Yeah.
two. Hopefully we bring a couple of them.
Yeah, we were trying to pull it in.
When I did YouTube videos on my first on Morning Shot, I did news. The one video, my favorite video I made was like white people need to start thinking like black entrepreneurs in townships. Like the township economy is almost worth R1 trillion. It varies between 600 billion to 900 billion rand. They don't pay tax. They don't care about equity. They don't do minimum wage. They're just making money, right? Because they know for a large part, the edifice of this regulation is just that. It's an edifice. You have to just be like a black entrepreneur in townships. You are brilliant business people that own other shops, taxi ranks, whatever you want. And they don't give a shit what the state says. Like they really don't care. And the state can't touch them because they are united in making money. Whereas, if I may say, like white businesses, we siloed, like this is my company and we're in competition with that company and we don't want to work with each other for some reason. But like the black township economy, it's a bit of a free for all, and that's why they do really well, compared to most.
It's a good take.
I mean, probably a lot of that is just by necessity, right? Like a lot of them would have formed because we need to live, we need to eat.
They have far more hunger than we do, guys.
Exactly.
Far more hunger, and they succeed at a far higher level than we do.
We becoming, I think a lot of us are hungry. Like we hope we can be a catalyst for a lot of guys out there that may not look like us, talk like us, from same backgrounds, but like you can do this now.
Yeah, you can. Just quickly tell me before it's getting a bit late, so I do apologize. Just tell me a little bit. The fact that it's an AI agent, we didn't touch on this, but it can basically speak in any language, right?
Yeah,
and that is huge.
That's huge. Yeah, that's a big one. But the other big one is if we say that the model underneath the systems, and we have a bunch of models. I think we use between 6 and 10 depending on the setup, 6 and 10 different models. And if we say that those are the engines to the car, the benefit of it is we've built the car and obviously we're improving the car. But every time a new model comes out, we can just swap the engine out and the car gets faster, stronger, whatever you want to call it. I think that's the other benefit of the world that we live in and the ecosystem that we're trying to build is it's fundamentally built on top of the ability to outsource intelligence. And that intelligence is independently of us improving with the ability to speak, text in any language, images, video, the world is moving so quickly. And that's the engine that we're kind of just going to keep swapping out until we'll just move along with the industry.
Correct.
Which a lot of people don't have the ability to do. Pre-AI, had we started this 3 years earlier, the car wouldn't have been built to swap engines out. We would have built the car with big bolts to keep the single engine that we needed, and we would have been fucking stuck.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. Multilingual, multimodal, and then whatever comes next,
And commercially, the engine is improving materially by the week, and the cost is coming down.
Yeah,
so the marginal cost for us to grow is tending to zero.
Yeah.
Which for me, diving into like a spreadsheet mode doesn't quite compute, but it's unraveling in front of us. Like the more you scale, the cheaper it gets. I know that's theoretically right economies, but the incremental, what's the word, extra unit of production or output that we're getting for the effort we're putting in it doesn't.
Like the leverage is so much higher.
Yeah.
Right?
And we
say for the same amount of work or for less work.
Yeah. And we can build an unprofitable product now and just wait.
Yeah.
If the major cost is at a model level, it costs 100 rand to do something. We can lose money on that for 6 months. And one model update makes that now 1 rand. And now we're instantly all the time and effort and knowledge and IP that we've built around that is well worth it. Which that same mindset, it's a completely different mindset to any other thing before. 5 years ago, you would never do that. You'd never build an unprofitable product from the get-go. But we often do this. We go down R&D little sprints and build stuff knowing that it's going to be really expensive to do this. but with the mindset of it just takes one model update and now it becomes a profitable skill for our agents to use. So it's a very unique time to be alive. And like for entrepreneurs and like you said, the hustlers,
Yeah.
you know, it's a great time to be a hustler, to be honest.
Yeah, don't worry about these AI doomers and gloomers and shit like that. Hardcore AI.
Build cool shit, solve problems, have fun.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping Community Wolf solves, because this is the biggest problem we face in the country. And you guys can potentially solve it. Anything that I haven't mentioned or that I haven't spoken about that you really want the audience to know before we close it off?
There are two stories early on. So we're 2 months in. We had just come out of Kaimandi and presented to the community. And on the 22nd of December, so just before Christmas, I got a phone call from a woman, panicked, that said she's standing outside a women's salon and 4 men have just entered, all armed, and are robbing them. So I was on a call with her for 5 minutes. The incident we later found out lasted about 12 minutes, and she's asking us for help. So we came as Community Wolf. We had a number, whether or not they reported it or not, I think after the fact they did, but we were that channel. And like for us, that was a moment to say, we're onto something. Let's digitize this. Let's make sure that instead of us dropping that incident into a SAPS group with municipal law enforcement, by hook or by crook, we're going to get a drone out there. We're going to pay a guy and a gun. We're going to make that community feel safer.
Yeah, and we've had some other incidents like stabbings with, you know, screwdrivers and knives and burning vehicles and, you know, dumping. You know, like we've had lots of stuff that really caters across the whole spectrum. We haven't yet had murders and those kinds of things, but you know, we're still early. There's still early days.
Yeah. We've got, a guy reported that he had been beaten up in a shebeen, and he's taking images of a gash down the side of his head. And because we're sitting on the enterprise side, we can click on it. It's not great, but we knew we were getting into it.
On the lighter side, we've also had some, as you do with these things, people sending in pictures which otherwise shouldn't be sent in.
Yeah.
And Wolf, obviously being the kind soul that it is, just sort of going along with it. And if I can, one of them is like someone from the Eastern countries sent this, because we know the number. He's banned now, and he basically said something along the lines of like, "I love boys," and the Wolf is like, "Oh, that's wonderful that you love," you know, like the classic "I'm a nice AI model. It's wonderful that you love boys," and then he just sends a picture. I'll just say that it's a bunch of dudes in this picture. And Wolf again just replies with the rainbow emoji. How good is that? It was like very early on, but it was hilarious. It was a proper crack up. I showed all my mates it, you know, because we can see the back, you know, I was about to say we can see the backside. That's a great.
But you then technically moderate with that,
yes,
right? So you learn and you sort of reinforcing this thing through its journey as well.
Yeah, and that basically prompted us to put a whole moderation layer in, because now and at that point we were having pictures on the map. So someone could send in a picture of like 4 dudes, or on the other worst spectrum of that is like a young girl naked or whatever, you know, like stuff that should really not be sent. So we now have a whole infrastructure layer that just does content moderation. So you get blacklisted and all this kind of stuff happens. But we, you know, in the early days, we got a lot of traction very early, and obviously then people try break it and do this kind of stuff. But so yeah, it was what happens when you build apps that hopefully billions of people will use. I'm sure that won't be the first nor the last.
No.
Yeah.
Gonna bring out only wolves. Only wolf.
Only wolf. No. Maybe we should trademark it. No, we shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should.
Yeah, so maybe if whoever's listening, if you want to use Community Wolf, you can go to communitywolf.com. There is a link to sign up. It'll take you to WhatsApp, or you can find us on TikTok. Try Community Wolf across all the kind of major platforms. Just follow the links, sign up, create an area where you live, where your kids go to school, where your wife works, whatever is appropriate to you, and then share that with your loved ones. And then if you see something, whether that's happening right now or something you knew that happened in the past, it can be as old as you want it to be. Report that to Wolf. That's how we start building up this data set, so we can actually go make South Africa a safer place.
And if you're a CPF member or anywhere in this ecosystem that you feel like this technology or platform could help, just email hello@CommunityWolf or either Mike or myself.
Epic.
Mike and Nick, thank you so much for joining me on Undercurrents. It's a small podcast. We both started around the same time, 6 months ago, but hopefully when we see each other again in a year or two, when you come back, you will be like this massive successful story that actually has a major beneficial effect on the safety of South Africa, which is what I'm passionate about. So thanks for creating it, and I wish you every success.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.